Got a text in here just now, and it covers bi-weekly mowings. And it says, as we're in winter, I believe that's when bi-weekly comes into being an advantage. We have a few properties that have no trees, so excuse me, so we cannot justify leaf cleanups. Mulch was installed in March. Want to get input from you on that aspect. I used to do a lot of bi-weekly mowing. I did. I used to do a lot of it back in the day. Or not a lot, but enough, more than we should. And, when you get into looking at where Justin's coming from here, if it's in a winter situation, I think a bi-weekly is okay. You get into certain markets, okay, and Justin, I don't want to convolute this much, but certain markets, bi-weekly mowings make sense. Some of our warmer markets where the grass isn't growing a whole lot, but you still need that bi-weekly visit to do what you need to do. Absolutely, a bi-weekly's great. Okay, it works. But what we're going to talk about where bi-weekly costs the guys too much money, I think, and from a profit standpoint, they can lose money with it, simply is when you're doing, in the main part of your growing season, a lot of contractors, or, when the grass is growing well enough to watch it grow, they're doing a bi-weekly cut for a lot of different reasons. And to Justin's point, like I was talking about before I knew where he was from, you get into certain warm market areas, it certainly makes sense to do a bi-weekly service. I would certainly do that. Justin said, yeah, he's down in Texas and they got St. Augustine. So absolutely it makes sense. But what I see too many contractors doing across the country, they're in markets that, and let's just throw the market out because the market doesn't matter. Where bi-weekly mows kill your profit margin is in that growing season. When you're in a segment of, the grass is growing aggressively, when God in a lot of different places across the country as a whole. I mean, there's times, to Justin's point too, you could be mowing properties twice a week. But why do we let that customer dictate that, hey, it's a bi-weekly mow? And, that's what I want to talk a little bit about right now is, if it depends on why we're doing that bi-weekly mowing, and even here with our service, and we're in Kentucky, right? So you guys know that we have a few bi-weekly mows that we do. Now, none of them are residential properties though. That's the thing. And they're not what we would consider God, I want to use the right word. I can't even think of the right word. I'm going to call it a good commercial property. It's more of like a field mowing situation, if that makes sense. We've got a couple places that we just, twice a week we just go mow them. Okay. And they're properties that are vacant, and we're just doing them from that standpoint. So, there's ways to look at bi-weekly mowing and have it make sense. But the point in my conversation here today, Turfs Up Radio wise with you guys, is don't make the mistakes we did and fill a normal route up. And you guys know what I mean when I say fill a normal route up, your day-to-day mowing, because that's what your customer says they want to do. Hey, well, I can afford a service every other week. Well, what happens? We're in the growing season, right? And that every other week cut, now we have some rain in between, which, right, it happens. I know it happens. We all know it happens. So now that 14-day cycle might go to a 17-day cycle. So now when you get there, it's like, oh, man, look at that, man. There's 10 inches of grass or 9 inches of grass or whatever there that we're having to mow. And you know what the unfortunate part of that is? What's the most unfortunate part of that? You're exactly right. We're getting paid the same amount of money to mow it if it's day 17 or 18 because of rain, or we're behind, or whatever the scenario might be. Or let's just put it in a perfect world, it's day 14. are you charging enough to justify taking those hours out of your schedule on a regular basis? In other words, on an every other week basis. Because when we get there every other week to mow and the grass is higher, let's just create the scenario, and I know you guys know it because you that are doing it, and a lot of you guys have done it and stopped doing it for the same reasons we stopped doing it. But the logistical nightmare of trying to keep that scheduled, and no, it sounds easy, I just do it every second Wednesday. Okay, but it rains Monday and Tuesday, or Tuesday and Wednesday. Now it's, like we said, 16 or 17 days out. So then when you get there to cut it, now you got to double cut it, triple cut it, whatever it is to get it looking right. You say, well, no, Wayne, we don't do that. If somebody's a bi-weekly service, we just mow it, trim it, and blow it, and move along. Well, let's look at that. Let's look at that as being the right answer for a second. Yeah, we don't double cut it. We don't triple cut it. We don't spend any more time, quote unquote, on that job. Well, because you don't spend any more time on that job, what's something else that we need to consider when we're doing those bi-weekly mows? Put your thinking cap on a second. What's something else we need to think about when we're doing those bi-weekly mows in our growing season? And to Justin's point, not when things have significantly slowed down and you're just going on a bi-weekly basis because all the grass has slowed down and you're just doing your site visits, right? I think we all agree, hey, that's fine then. But when you're in the middle of your growing season and you got somebody set up on a bi-weekly service, what's something we need to consider that most of us don't consider other than the price? The great thing about bi-weekly cuts in the growing season is nothing. How you guys like that? Had a couple texts come in and absolutely point spot on. Spot on. One from Stephen said, hey, opportunity cost. Absolutely. And then another one where Justin said, hey, you know what? If you agree to do it on a bi-weekly basis, then pretty much you got to agree to do it right. If it takes 2 or 3 cuts, by God, that's what you got to do to get it right. And I agree 100% with that. That we cannot halfway do a job. We can't halfway do a job. Because the other thing that we need to consider about a bi-weekly cut is simply this, and this is just my opinion and my experience and things that I found out of why it didn't make sense for us. That, you and your client know that the property is being maintained on an every 2-week cycle, right? You know it, they know it. And they may even be okay with you saying, hey, I'm going to run over it one time because they're like, dude, I just want my grass cut. I just want my grass cut. Just come over, run over it. Man, I don't care what it looks like. Just do it. Is that the client you want? Is that the opportunity you want? It's kind of like my start-in song to my show. You got one chance, one opportunity. Just because you and your customer, and I know you guys are going to think I'm crazy when I say this probably, but that's okay. Just because you and your customer know that you're going to do a half-assed job doesn't mean it's right for you in your business. It doesn't mean it's right for you in your business, because it took me too many years to learn this simple fact. I thought my customer was the most important person in the world. And they are very important, right? They are. I think we can all agree to that. But I think we got to look at something about customers. Customers or temporary stops at each of our companies. Now, I know our feelings get involved in that, you know. We get mad when we lose a customer, right? You do, I do, we all do. But the reality of it is, we're all going to lose customers. Don't blame your competitor when you lose a job. Well, he stole that account or she stole that account. No, that's not it at all. You lost that account. And when we're putting on accounts for people that just say, hey, just cut it, I don't care what it looks like. That gets into what we're going to talk about in selling here toward the end of this show today, hopefully a little bit, because I'm continuing with that selling series, and I just want to touch on it a little bit each day for a while, the selling side of it. But the reality of it is, you and your client may know it, but realistically, the most important people that we have to satisfy is the person driving down the street, seeing your truck and your name in front of that property, and the quality of work that you're leaving behind. Because those are your potential customers. You've sold the account that you're maintaining, and yes, it's important to do the job and do it the way they want it and do it right, but for the longevity and the life cycle of your business, you got to think not only about the customer that you're maintaining, but the hundreds of people. That may be a stretch, may not be a stretch, could be thousands of people based on where you're mowing, right? That pass that property and see your trucks parked out in front of there on a regular basis, whether it's bi-weekly or weekly. But your truck in your name is what people are going to remember when they drive by that job site. And yeah, just because you and that customer / client / property owner understand that, well, no, we're just going to mow it one time and trim it and blow it, and hey, that's all it needs. Think of all the people driving by that don't know that's the relationship you got. What's that say about your company? I'll tell you what I think it says. When I'm driving down the street and something looks like it got serviced halfway, I'm thinking, man, I wonder who does that. I'm certainly not calling them. And I think that's what we need to look at. And, I think to Justin's point that, hey, if you commit to do it on a bi-weekly basis, then, man, you've got to commit to doing it the right way. We've got to leave that lawn in the right condition, because you know what? What happens is, whether it's a double cut or a triple cut, it's got to be done right. Because, it gets into the pride that you should have as a business owner on doing the job right. And just because and I can hear you out there thinking, well, I need to work. I need to work. Now's a perfect time for most of our industry to look at replacing the customers that we really don't need. And it's those bi-weekly service customers. And again, I'm not saying, this goes back to Justin's point. If it's a situation where you go to a bi-weekly service because it's the time of the year, absolutely, that's part of that contract. Hey, it's weekly this time of the year. We go to a bi-weekly cycle in the winter, and then we start back in the spring with a weekly service again. That's absolutely perfect condition. And run with it. Make it work. But don't let the customer dictate your frequency, because also what I've found is 99% of us that are doing a bi-weekly service during the mowing season, we're not pricing the job properly. We are not pricing the job properly. And like I say, well, I had 20% or I had 25%. 20 or 25% ain't getting it when you got to triple cut something. Because it's not just about more time on mowing, it's more time on trimming, it's more time on blowing. The whole job increases exponentially. It's just that simple. You know, we've got to attract the right client. The only winner in a bi-weekly mowing cycle during the growing season, it's the customer. Because most of us are just like, me, you. Our pride's going to keep us from leaving that job looking like it's halfway done. And we're going to do what's necessary to do the job the right way. And I appreciate that text coming in. The winner is the client. Absolutely. It's just what we talked about. The only person that wins is the client. They're getting a great job spending half the money, and you're spending at least 2 to 3 times to do the job right because your pride's going to do it right. So if your pride's going to do it right, let your pride and passion, this talks about the 4 P's to success, and this is something we talked about before. The 4 P's to success. Let your pride stay in there. Let the passion stay in there. But don't forget the purpose of your business. And the purpose of your business is the final P, and that's to make a profit.